The sun was setting over Los Angeles as a modest Toyota Prius pulled up to the back entrance of the Stellar Studios complex. In a world of stretch limousines and luxury SUVs, the understated arrival spoke volumes about its passenger. Keanu Reeves stepped out, dressed in a simple black suit and white shirt, no tie. He nodded a thank you to his driver before turning toward the building where one of America's most watched talk shows was filmed live every Thursday night. Where are you watching from today? Comment down below. The Night with Nathan Shaw show had been dominating ratings for 3 seasons now, largely due to its host's infamous tendency to push boundaries and create viral moments at his guests' expense. Nathan had built his brand on being provocative, asking questions other hosts wouldn't dare, and turning uncomfortable moments into entertainment. His Twitter bio proudly proclaimed, "Making celebrities squirm since 2021. As Keanu approached the studio entrance, a young production assistant rushed out to greet him, clipboard in hand and anxiety evident on her face. "Mr. Reeves, thank you so much for coming. I'm Ellie. I'll be taking care of you tonight." Her nervousness melted slightly when Keanu smiled warmly and shook her hand. "Just Keanu is fine," he said, his voice gentle and reassuring. "And thank you for having me. Is everything okay? You seem a little stressed." The production assistant's eyes widened at his perceptiveness. "Oh, it's just, Mr. Shaw has been in a mood today. He wasn't happy with the pre-interview notes and, well, he made some changes to the segment plan." She lowered her voice. "Just a heads up, he might go off script tonight." Keanu nodded thoughtfully. "That's all right. Life rarely follows a script anyway, does it?" There was a quiet wisdom in his response that made Ellie relax slightly as she led him through the backstage area. The corridors of Stellar Studios buzzed with the controlled chaos, typical of live television. Crew members rushed about with headsets and equipment, barely looking up from their tasks. But as Keanu passed, something unusual happened. People paused, if only for a moment. It wasn't the typical celebrity double take of recognition. It was something deeper, a respect that transcended his fame. In the green room, a small altar of sorts had been set up in the corner, a burning candle, a small statue, and what appeared to be a prayer book. The makeup artist noticed Keanu glancing at it. "That's Sophia's little meditation space," she explained as she prepared her brushes. "She says it keeps her centered during the crazy work days." "It's beautiful," Keanu commented. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small wooden bracelet with carved beads. "Mind if I add this for good luck tonight?" "Of course not." "She'd be honored," the makeup artist replied, watching curiously as Keanu placed the bracelet respectfully next to the candle, closed his eyes for just a brief moment, and then returned to his seat for makeup. Word of this small gesture spread quickly through the studio staff. By the time Keanu was ready to go on stage, there was a subtle shift in the atmosphere backstage. Crew members who had barely looked up before now made eye contact, offering genuine smiles. A security guard approached hesitantly, with a small book in hand. "Mr. Reeves, I know this isn't the time, but my daughter, she's been battling leukemia, and your movies have been getting her through the treatments. Would you mind?" He held out the book, a journal with inspirational quotes. Without hesitation, Keanu took the book and spoke directly to the guard, asking the daughter's name and age. He spent several minutes writing a personal message, not the rushed autograph most celebrities would offer moments before going on air. The floor manager, checking her watch anxiously, didn't have the heart to interrupt. Meanwhile, in his private dressing room, Nathan Shaw was reviewing note cards with his producer, Martin. The stark contrast between the two environments was telling. Shaw's room was filled with framed magazine covers featuring his own face, and a large monitor displayed real-time social media metrics, tracking the show's online engagement. "The Reeves interview needs to pop," Nathan insisted, flipping through the cards with dissatisfaction. "Everyone loves this guy. Too much. It's boring. We need an angle that hasn't been done to death." "The Motorcycle Collection, his new film project," Martin began, but Nathan waved dismissively. "Predictable. What about this spiritual stuff I've been hearing about? He wears these Buddhist bracelets, does all this charity work under the radar. Nobody ever pushes him on it." A calculating smile spread across Nathan's face. Celebrities in their enlightenment phases, always good for ratings. Martin shifted uncomfortably. I don't know, Nathan. Reeves is pretty private about that stuff. And after what happened with the Jenkins interview last month, Jenkins didn't have the balls to handle it properly. Nathan interrupted. Trust me, people love watching these Hollywood types squirm when you question their little spiritual journeys. Is it authentic? Is it just trendy Buddhism? What happens when you push past the Zen facade? He tossed the note cards aside. Let's go off script tonight. The producer's objections died on his lips as the monitor showed a spike in social media activity. Advance promotions for tonight's Keanu Reeves interview were already generating significant buzz, with viewers reminiscing about their favorite Keanu moments in films. Back near the stage, Keanu was being fitted with a microphone by a sound technician who couldn't help sharing how The Matrix had inspired her to pursue a career in film production. Keanu listened attentively, asking questions about her work as if he were the interviewer, not the celebrated guest about to be interviewed. Through the monitor, they could see Nathan Shaw, opening the show with his trademark intensity, working the studio audience into a frenzy with promises of an unforgettable night. His energy was electric, but with an edge of aggression that felt more pronounced than usual. He's really fired up tonight, the sound technician whispered. Just be careful out there. Keanu raised an eyebrow slightly but smiled. I've faced agents from the Matrix. I think I can handle a talk show host. The gentle joke broke the tension, earning a laugh from the nearby crew. As Nathan built toward Keanu's introduction, a production assistant hurried over. Mr. Reeves, you're on after the commercial break. Mr. Shaw wanted me to tell you he's really looking forward to digging deep tonight. There was concern in her eyes as she delivered the message. Keanu nodded, his expression serene despite the implicit warning. He took a moment to himself, breathing deeply and centering his thoughts. The persona the public saw, the gentle, thoughtful Keanu, wasn't an act. It was who he truly was, forged through personal tragedy and a lifetime of seeking understanding. The floor director counted down from 10 as the show prepared to return from commercial. The contrast couldn't have been more striking. Nathan Shaw straightening his designer suit and checking his reflection one last time, versus Keanu Reeves quietly adjusting the wooden beads on his wrist, a reminder of what truly mattered to him. And we're back in 5, 4, 3. The director's voice fell silent as the red light on the camera illuminated. It was showtime, a meeting of two fundamentally different philosophies about to collide for the entertainment of millions. The authentic soul versus the ratings machine. And unknown to everyone involved, it was about to become one of the most talked about television moments of the year. As Keanu waited in the wings, watching Nathan's exaggerated gestures and hearing the heightened tone he used to announce his next guest, he remained untroubled. Years of spiritual practice had taught him that peace comes not from controlling external circumstances, but from how one responds to them. Whatever was about to unfold, Keanu was ready, not with rehearsed answers or defensive postures, but with the simple authenticity that had endeared him to millions worldwide. Ladies and gentlemen, Nathan's voice boomed through the studio. Please welcome the internet's favorite human, the man who's killed more bad guys than the flu, Keanu Reeves. The studio audience erupted into thunderous applause as Keanu Reeves walked onto the stage. His humble smile and slight wave contrasted sharply with most celebrities, who typically bounded out with exaggerated enthusiasm. There was an authenticity to his entrance that resonated with everyone watching. A man comfortable in his own skin, neither seeking adoration nor shying away from it. Nathan Shaw rushed forward with the practiced enthusiasm of a talk show veteran, his smile wide but not quite reaching his eyes. The handshake he offered was firm and camera-ready, followed by an overly familiar clap on Keanu's shoulder as he guided him to the guest chair. Keanu Reeves, ladies and gentlemen, the man, the myth, the legend. Nathan's voice boomed over the continued applause. As they settled into their seats, he leaned forward with the intensity that had become his trademark. So great to finally have you on the show. I've been trying to get you here for, 2 years now? Something like that. Keanu nodded, his voice measured and calm. The timing never seemed right before. I'm glad it worked out now. Busy saving the world in your movies, or just being the internet's favorite nice guy? Nathan's question came with a laugh that invited the audience to join in, but there was a subtle edge beneath the banter. the first hint that this wasn't going to be a standard friendly interview. Keanu took it in stride, offering a self-deprecating smile. "Just trying to do good work. The internet is very kind, but I'm just a guy doing my job." For the first 15 minutes, the interview progressed along familiar lines. Nathan asked about Keanu's latest film project, his iconic roles, and his passion for motorcycles. The audience was engaged, comfortable in the familiar rhythm of celebrity talk show exchanges. Even the production team began to relax, wondering if their concerns about Nathan going off script had been unfounded. Then came the pivot. "So, Keanu," Nathan's tone shifted subtly as he shuffled his note cards. "I've noticed something interesting about you over the years. Unlike a lot of Hollywood types who flaunt their spiritual journeys on Instagram, the look at me meditating at sunrise crowd, you've kept yours pretty private." Keanu nodded, his expression neutral but attentive. "But it's there, isn't it?" Nathan pressed. "The Buddhist beliefs, the prayer beads, the whole spiritual package. Is that something you've embraced, or is it more of a Hollywood fashion statement these days?" A barely perceptible change crossed Keanu's face. Not offense, but a moment of recalibration as he recognized the conversation's new direction. "I wouldn't call it a fashion statement," he answered thoughtfully. "I've found value in certain spiritual practices and philosophies over the years. They've helped me navigate life's challenges." Nathan's smile widened, sensing the opportunity he'd been waiting for. Life's challenges, spoken like a true celebrity mystic. He turned to the audience with exaggerated reverence. When normal people have problems, they just deal with them. But when Hollywood has problems, they discover ancient wisdom. The audience laughed, though not as enthusiastically as Nathan might have hoped. "I think searching for meaning is pretty universal," Keanu offered calmly. "It's a human thing, not a celebrity thing." "But you have to admit," Nathan continued, ignoring Keanu's reasonable response, "there's something convenient about celebrities finding religion or spirituality right when they need an image makeover. It's like the ultimate PR move. Suddenly you're not just famous, you're enlightened." He made air quotes around the word, drawing another tepid laugh from portions of the audience. The camera caught a brief shot of the production assistant, Ellie, wincing backstage. This was exactly what she had feared. "I can't speak for others," Keanu replied, his voice still even. "My journey has been personal. It's not something I've publicized." "And yet here you are, wearing those prayer beads on national television?" Nathan pointed to Keanu's wrist with a triumphant smirk. "Sending a message without saying a word, that's clever marketing." A subtle shift began happening in the studio. Audience members exchanged uncomfortable glances. The cameraman, focusing on Keanu's face, lingered on his expression, which remained composed despite the increasingly pointed jabs. "They're mala beads," Keanu explained simply. "They're meaningful to me. Not everything is about marketing." Nathan sensed the audience's growing discomfort, but mistook it for tension that would make for good television. He doubled down. "Come on, Keanu. We're all adults here. Faith is the ultimate celebrity accessory these days. When the going gets tough, the tough find Buddha, right?" His laugh was sharp, cutting. "Or is it just a convenient way to avoid answering the hard questions about life?" The audience fell completely silent now. In the control room, the producer, Martin, put his head in his hands. "He's pushing too far," he muttered to no one in particular. Keanu took a measured breath, his hands resting calmly on the armrests of his chair. For a brief moment, the camera caught something in his eyes, not anger, but a profound sadness mixed with compassion. It was the look of someone who recognized the pain behind another's cruelty. Nathan continued, emboldened by Keanu's silence and misinterpreting it as having struck a nerve. "I've always wondered if these spiritual beliefs are just a crutch for celebrities who can't handle reality. When you have everything money can buy, I guess you need to invent some deeper meaning, right? A little spiritual security blanket for the rich and famous." A woman in the front row of the audience audibly gasped. Another audience member shook his head in disapproval. The atmosphere in the studio had transformed completely, the earlier excitement replaced by collective secondhand embarrassment and growing indignation on Keanu's behalf. Keanu remained still, his expression contemplative rather than wounded. Those who knew him well would recognize that he wasn't formulating a defense or a comeback. He was genuinely considering Nathan's words, looking for the pain or insecurity behind them that would drive someone to such public disrespect. What I find interesting, Nathan pressed on, his voice rising slightly as he fought to regain control of the interview, is how these beliefs conveniently show up after personal tragedies. Like it's easier to invent some cosmic order than face the randomness of life's cruelties. Wouldn't you agree? The reference to personal tragedies, something Keanu had experienced more than his share of, crossed a line that even Nathan's most loyal viewers would recognize. The atmosphere in the studio grew heavy with tension. A camera panning across the audience captured expressions of shock and disapproval. In the silent moment that followed, before Keanu could respond, time seemed suspended. The studio lights felt suddenly harsh, illuminating a moment of naked cruelty disguised as entertainment. Nathan's expression flickered between smug satisfaction and a dawning realization that he might have miscalculated badly. And then, Keanu Reeves lifted his gaze to meet Nathan's directly, not with anger, not with hurt, but with something far more powerful, complete and genuine presence. The look of a man who had faced true suffering and emerged not hardened, but deepened. The studio fell into a silence so complete that the hum of the air conditioning suddenly seemed deafening. Nathan Shaw's smirk began to falter as Keanu Reeves regarded him with eyes that held neither anger nor resentment, but something far more disarming, compassion. "You know, Nathan," Keanu finally spoke, his voice soft, yet somehow filling the entire space. "I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding about faith and spirituality." He leaned forward slightly, not in confrontation, but in genuine connection. "It's not about escaping reality. It's about having the courage to face it more completely." Nathan shifted in his seat, thrown off balance by the measured response. He had expected either defensiveness or celebrity outrage, reactions he knew how to manipulate for entertainment. Keanu's calm dignity left him momentarily without a script. "When life brings you to your knees," Keanu continued, "you have two choices. You can remain shattered, or you can seek to understand your place in something larger. That search isn't weakness. It's one of the bravest things a person can do." Somewhere in the audience, a phone camera flashed as someone recognized the significance of what was unfolding. This wasn't going to be a typical talk show moment. It was becoming something far more authentic. "That sounds like a convenient philosophy when things go wrong." Nathan attempted to regain his footing, though his voice had lost its earlier edge. "The universe has a plan. Everything happens for a reason. All those platitudes people use to avoid facing harsh realities." Keanu nodded thoughtfully. "I understand why it might seem that way, but true spirituality isn't about platitudes or blind faith. It's about questions, not answers. It's about sitting with the pain, not running from it." He glanced down at the mala beads on his wrist, running his thumb over them once before continuing. "I've faced loss in my life, as many have. My spiritual practice didn't make that pain disappear. It gave me a way to honor it, to carry it with reverence, rather than be destroyed by it." The audience remained spellbound. Even the cameramen, usually focused solely on their technical tasks, found themselves captivated by Keanu's words. "You know," Keanu said, his voice taking on a more personal tone, "when my daughter was stillborn and then her mother died not long after, there was a darkness I couldn't see my way through." The revelation sent a ripple through the studio. Keanu rarely spoke publicly about these personal tragedies. "I'm sorry for your loss," Nathan said automatically, his practiced television persona momentarily replaced by genuine human response. "Thank you," Keanu acknowledged with a slight nod. "During that time, a Buddhist teaching found me, not the other way around. It spoke of impermanence, of how we suffer when we resist the natural flow of life and death. It didn't take away the pain, but it helped me understand that my pain connected me to every other human being who has ever loved and lost. There was a strange comfort in that universality." A woman in the third row wiped tears from her eyes. Next to her, a man reached for her hand. "The beads you mocked earlier," Keanu continued without accusation in his tone, Each one represents a mantra of compassion. When I'm feeling lost or overwhelmed, they remind me that kindness matters, especially in a world that can be so harsh. They remind me to extend that compassion to others, even to those who might not understand or respect my beliefs. The implied forgiveness in his words caused Nathan to flush visibly. For perhaps the first time in his broadcasting career, the provocative host seemed genuinely chastened. "The easy path would have been to close my heart after experiencing such loss," Keanu said, his gaze now extending beyond Nathan to include the audience, and by extension, the millions watching at home. "To become bitter, cynical, to lash out at others. Many days, that seemed like the only option." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "But my spiritual practice offered another way. Not an escape from pain, but a method to transform it into something that might, in some small way, add more light to the world instead of more darkness." A spontaneous applause began somewhere in the back of the studio and quickly spread. Nathan, recognizing the shifting dynamics of the moment, did not try to interrupt. This was no longer his show to control. "We all search for meaning in different ways," Keanu said once the applause subsided. "Some find it in religion, some in philosophy, some in service to others. Some find it in questioning everything, as you seem to do, Nathan." He offered a genuine smile. "There's value in healthy skepticism too, but perhaps the most important thing is that we respect each other's journeys, even when they differ from our own." The audience erupted into applause again, longer and more emphatic this time. In the control room, the producer who had earlier been dreading disaster was now frantically signaling to the director not to cut to commercial. He recognized television gold when he saw it. Nathan Shaw, master of the calculated response, found himself genuinely at a loss. His usual arsenal of sarcasm and provocative questions seemed not just inappropriate, but impossibly small in the face of Keanu's authenticity. "I don't know what to say," Nathan admitted, an unprecedented moment of vulnerability for the notoriously sharp-tongued host. "You don't always have to say anything," Keanu replied gently. "Sometimes it's enough just to listen." The woman who had been crying earlier stood up, beginning what quickly became a standing ovation. The camera panned across faces, showing everything from tears to smiles of profound appreciation. Nathan, sensing the profound shift in the room, did something rare for him. He simply nodded and remained silent, allowing the moment to be about someone other than himself. When the applause finally began to fade, Keanu turned back to his host, with kindness in his eyes. "You asked earlier if faith is just a crutch for those who can't handle reality. I would suggest instead that it's a compass for those brave enough to face reality completely, with an open heart. And that requires more courage than most of us realize." Nathan nodded slowly, the calculation gone from his expression. "I think I understand," he said, and for once, there was no trace of performance in his voice. "We're all just trying to make sense of this journey," Keanu said, his words carrying the weight of hard-won wisdom. "All I know for certain is that how we treat each other along the way matters more than whatever certainties we think we possess." As the segment drew to a close, something extraordinary happened. Nathan Shaw, the man whose career had been built on creating conflict and controversy, reached out and shook Keanu's hand with what appeared to be genuine respect, a silent acknowledgement that sometimes the most powerful response to disrespect is not retaliation, but elevation. By the time the Night with Nathan Shaw credits rolled that evening, clips of Keanu's profound response were already spreading across social media like wildfire. What had begun as an attempt to embarrass a beloved actor had transformed into something none of the producers could have anticipated, a genuine moment of wisdom and humanity that transcended typical talk show fare. The hashtag #RespectKeanu began trending within the hour, accompanied by thousands of video clips capturing the exact moment when Nathan's smug expression gave way to genuine humility. Viewers who had tuned in expecting typical celebrity banter instead witnessed an authentic exchange that resonated far beyond entertainment value. "Did you see Keanu on Nathan Shaw last night? The way he handled that disrespect was a masterclass in dignity," wrote one viral tweet that garnered over 200,000 likes by morning. Never seen a talk show host so completely outclassed, added another. Media outlets that typically ignored celebrity talk show appearances found themselves covering the segment. In an era of manufactured outrage and rehearsed responses, Reeves offered something rarely seen on television, genuine wisdom delivered with humility, wrote a prominent culture critic. The commentary wasn't focused on Keanu's movies or career, but on the philosophical depth he had displayed when challenged. For Nathan Shaw, the fallout came swiftly. By midday following the broadcast, 3 major sponsors had pulled their advertising from upcoming episodes. The show's social media accounts were flooded with comments condemning Nathan's disrespect toward not just Keanu, but faith and spirituality in general. Viewers who had previously enjoyed his provocative style were now questioning the thin line between challenging interviews and simple cruelty. The network executives called an emergency meeting where Nathan found himself in the unfamiliar position of being on the defensive. It was just entertainment, he argued to unsympathetic faces around the conference table. We've done edgier segments before without this kind of backlash. This wasn't edgy, Nathan. It was mean-spirited, the network's head of programming responded. And worse, it was mean-spirited to possibly the most universally respected figure in Hollywood. She slid a tablet across the table, showing the plummeting ratings projected for upcoming episodes. You need to fix this. Today. The required public apology came that afternoon, a carefully worded statement posted across all of Nathan's social media platforms. Last night, I crossed a line in my interview with Keanu Reeves. What was intended as provocative questioning became disrespectful to both Mr. Reeves and to matters of personal faith. I sincerely apologize for my insensitivity and thank Mr. Reeves for the grace with which he responded. But the damage control came too late. The contrast between Nathan's calculated apology and Keanu's genuine wisdom only heightened public perception of the talk show host's artifice. Several celebrities who had been scheduled to appear on upcoming episodes suddenly developed scheduling conflicts, unwilling to associate with a show that had revealed such a toxic approach to interviews. Meanwhile, Keanu himself had made no public statement about the incident. He had simply returned to his daily life, visiting children's hospitals without camera crews, funding cancer research anonymously, and continuing his spiritual practices away from public view. His silence spoke more eloquently than any media statement could have. 3 weeks after the interview, something unexpected appeared on Keanu's sparse social media accounts. An announcement about the formation of the Respect Foundation, a new initiative focused on promoting respectful dialogue across different belief systems. The foundation would offer grants to organizations creating spaces where people of diverse faiths and philosophical backgrounds could share their perspectives without judgment. In a world increasingly divided by certainty, the mission statement read, "We seek to create spaces for compassionate questioning and mutual respect." Though the foundation made no reference to the talk show incident, the timing was impossible to ignore. Rather than responding to disrespect with retaliation, Keanu had transformed it into an opportunity for positive change. Public response to the foundation was overwhelming. Donations poured in, not just from Keanu's fans, but from people across the spectrum of beliefs who recognized the value of what he was attempting to create. Religious leaders, philosophers, and educators offered their support and participation. For Nathan Shaw, the professional consequences continued to unfold. His show's ratings entered a steep decline from which they never fully recovered. Television executives, always attentive to public sentiment, began to question the sustainability of programming built on confrontation and disrespect. Several competing networks introduced new talk show formats specifically designed around thoughtful conversation rather than gotcha moments. 6 months after the incident, Nathan Shaw announced he would be taking a break from television to pursue other creative opportunities, the entertainment industry's standard phrasing for a career in free fall. The final episodes of his show drew only a fraction of their former audience. In a twist that media observers found particularly fitting, Nathan's replacement was announced the following week. Ellie Chen, the young production assistant who had warned Keanu about Nathan's intentions before the infamous interview. Her new talk show, Real Conversations, promised a return to authentic dialogue built on mutual respect. At the press conference announcing her new role, Ellie was asked about the incident that had indirectly led to this opportunity. "What happened that night changed how I think about entertainment," she admitted. I realized we don't have to choose between compelling television and basic human decency. Mr. Reeves showed us all that the most powerful moments come from authenticity, not artificially created conflict. A year to the day after the interview, Keanu Reeves received a handwritten letter that his assistant placed on his desk among the morning's correspondence. The return address showed it was from Nathan Shaw. What the letter contained, Keanu never publicly revealed. But those close to him noted that after reading it, he made a substantial anonymous donation to a rehabilitation center that specialized in helping people rebuild their lives and careers after public downfalls. When asked by a journalist if he felt vindicated by how events had unfolded, Keanu's response embodied the same wisdom he had demonstrated during the interview. "Life isn't about vindication," he said softly. "It's about growth. Sometimes the most difficult moments become our greatest teachers, not just for the person being challenged, but for the one doing the challenging as well." The journalist pressed further. "So you forgive him for what happened?" Keanu's smile was genuine as he replied, "Forgiveness isn't something you do once and announce to the world. It's a practice, like gratitude or compassion. And in my experience, it benefits the one doing the forgiving even more than the one being forgiven." In the end, what had begun as an attempt to mock one man's faith had rippled outward in unexpected ways, touching countless lives and subtly shifting the culture of entertainment itself. Not through outrage or retaliation, but through the simple, powerful choice to respond to disrespect with dignity. A reminder that sometimes the most effective response to negativity is to rise above it with grace and transform it into something better.